Welcome to Meet the Candidate with your host, Sulani Madsen. Meet the Candidate is your opportunity to see local candidates and hear about the experiences that have shaped their lives. Meet the Candidate is a nonpartisan community project brought to you by your friends at the Ponderosa Republican Women's Club, North by Northwest Digital, We Believe, We Vote, and the McGarry Law Office, the landlord's attorney. Now, here's Sulani.
Well, welcome to Meet the Candidate, and my guest for this session is Chris Jackson, who is running for Spokane Valley City Council, position 1. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you for having me, Sue.
So, we'll start with this is life story time. Where did you grow up?
I am a Valley kid. I was born at Sacred Heart downtown, and my family's been here for over 3 generations. Most of my time has been spent here. I went to high school at University High School. Go Titans!
Yeah.
I mean, all things considered, this is, for all intents and purposes, home. I've had some time to go exploring, but I always make my way back here.
Okay. So after University High School, you went on to some higher education at some other locations. Where would you go to school?
Yeah, so as you know, we don't have any colleges here, so I was forced to look elsewhere.
Yeah.
And
lots of kids want to get away from home. So.
And I settled on Western Washington University was the place for me, and Bellingham is an absolutely wonderful city. And so I spent my time getting my bachelor's there. Liked it so much I decided to stay for a master's. And then after that I met some people, and they ended up dragging me along to New Zealand for a doctorate.
Okay, so what were you studying in your undergraduate and graduate degrees?
It's pretty much different variations of psychology all the way through, and not of the counseling kind. It's worth mentioning. This is the kind where you talk to people, gather information, and make predictions about how they might behave in certain situations.
Okay, so the doctorate, I think we had mentioned before something about it was looking at juries.
Ooh, the masters, yes.
The masters, yes.
Jury decision-making models. So I was a part of a couple projects that involved talking to jurors and asking how they might respond to certain situations. The one that was probably the most intriguing was a hit and run with a bicycle. And the big question the lawyer wanted to know was whether or not you'd want a cyclist on the jury. And so we did a bunch of research, and we talked to a bunch of cyclists, and by and large, they all said that the cyclist should have known better. And so the lawyer, that didn't compute, and so they were like, no, that doesn't make any sense. And we can't demonstrate that it was because they didn't take our advice that it didn't go that way, but at the same time, sometimes the findings are surprising.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one either. I have to say that I wrote one column about bicyclists should wear something reflective at night.
Oh, definitely.
And that got the most hate mail, not a hate mail, but that got the strongest reaction in email back to me, because I just suggested it'd be nice if you wore something reflective.
Well, it'd be surprising, it's usually a bit of a give and take.
Yeah.
Make it easier on the drivers, make it easier on the cyclists.
Yeah, just give me half a shot at seeing you in the dark. That's all I'm asking. Oh, interesting. So the New Zealand, that was for the PhD? Mm-hmm. And the subject was?
Social psychology. I ended up writing a dissertation about human mortality. And so the project centered around how people use faith and how people use, worldviews and life frameworks to sort of figure those questions out.
Oh, interesting. And what did you find different about, since you lived there? I mean, that's different than being a tourist. What did you find different about New Zealand compared to the U.S.?
The first thing you notice is the casual atmosphere. I have stories in my mind during my master's of getting to work at 8 in the morning and staying until 10 p.m. because you didn't want to be the first person that left the lab.
Yeah.
So everyone's nose to the grindstone. And then I remember my first full work day in New Zealand. It was like 3 p.m. and a bunch of kids were like, hey, it's warm outside. You want to go to the beach? And in my mind, I'm like, that doesn't sound right, but okay. And so, they fully embrace that lifestyle that you should take mandatory time off and you want to enjoy yourselves and it's not all about work. And that's easily the most infectious thing about the country. Not to mention its natural beauty.
Yes. So then that's not at all a segue to the other question I was going to ask, which was about first jobs, and I guess that's a very American question to ask.
Oh, yes.
What was your first job where you connected work and money?
That would be a swim instructor. As many people probably know, the Jackson family pool's been around for over 50 years. I think Grandma's going on 66 years now. And so my first job, as you make your way through the cousins, is to try your hand at swim instructing. And I ended up taking to that really well, and it actually sparked a pretty keen interest in working with children in all shapes and sizes. And so I've been doing that for over 10 years, and I've done some volunteer work and some employment at the Vanessa B. and Crisis Nursery. I've done some tutoring in my spare time. So I really just enjoy working with kids whenever and wherever possible.
Okay. And so what are you doing right now for a job?
Oh, teaching swimming lessons. I've reprised my old role, and
Oh, okay.
I am also currently in the market for a professor spot. So if anyone hears anything, please let me know. I want to teach psychology.
Okay. I know that we kind of touched on travel a little bit, but what about travel in the United States?
Well, the family was always keen on moving around. My dad had employment that took him to California when I was 2 and my sister was born. We ended up in Georgia where I was 4 and my sister was 2. And then a lot of those drives, because the family is all based here, was, Atlanta over to Spokane Valley and then sometimes back. So during those times, we were allowed to sort of snake our way through different paths to see different parts of the U.S. So I've seen actually most of the states. The ones that I know I'm missing for sure are Alaska, Louisiana, and to be honest, I couldn't name a lot of the ones in the Northeast that are the smaller ones because those were at a time in which I wasn't fully aware of what I was seeing.
Yeah. So what is maybe a favorite teacher or school experience that helped you give you insight as a psychologist, give you insight into to your worldview?
Oh, my goodness. Mr. Jansen was actually my high school psychology teacher. I actually had the privilege of seeing him probably a few months ago. And I don't know if you know much about Pavlov and his dogs, classical conditioning.
Well, just the classic, yes, the classical description of
So as an introduction to that course, he would ring a bell and give a kid in the front seat a Tootsie Roll. And we had no context as high school students about what was going on. And so this happened over the course of 2 months. And before he brought up classical conditioning, he hit the button and the kid's hand just went up instinctively. And he's like, let me tell you about classical conditioning. And I think for me, that was sort of the perfect fusion of practical experience and learning a lesson. Still sticks with me as one of those things that I remember to this day.
Well, I do object lessons as part of worship service, and part of the reason for doing that is because if there is some object involved, something tangible, it's easier to make a memory.
Yes.
And so that's the whole point of having something, whether it's a gooey piece of chocolate or lighting candles or something that's
Something to do with your hands. And
something to do with your
physically-
hands,
yep.
something that's maybe dangerous or you don't usually do. Yeah, like handing out candy in class. Well, that got us a little bit off track.
Oh, that's all right. Take us right back.
I was going to ask what drew you to public service. Not everybody runs for public office, and
Yeah, and to be fair, I dragged my feet a bit on this one. I think most of the public is pretty keen on just throwing stones from the sidelines and making complaints. And
it's always easier, right?
we had talked about this before, but the inciting incident for me was when the current council let Mike Jackson go. And the thing that stuck out for me was the fact that a couple people had made the decision before bringing it to council, and they'd asked him to resign. He didn't want to resign, so they got together with a few more council members, and they made a decision to fire him. And so it came as a shock to the public, who absolutely loved him, and the other council members who absolutely loved him. And so decisions like that sort of stick in your mind as ones that you don't want the Valley to be known for moving forward. That's not the way we want to be known for conducting business. And so that for me was a chance to get involved, start doing research, start meeting with people. And I was actually surprised at how many people were encouraging and wanted to support me in the process. So that was a silver lining to the not wanting to get your hands dirty.
Okay, well, we're closing to that last question, which is now you can answer for everyone. Why vote for Chris Jackson for Spokane Valley City Council, Position 1?
Well, there's the holy trinity of things that City Council does, and the obvious public safety, road preservation, and maintenance, right? You need snow plows to come in the winter. We've all lived in Spokane and Spokane Valley. But the thing that I want to focus on that sets me apart from other candidates is that I have extensive research in soliciting feedback from people. That was the master's and the PhD. And one of the things a lot of people probably know going into politics or thinking about politics or talking about politics is that whenever an election happens or whenever a ballot happens, not a lot of the population is involved. Not a lot of them participate. And so one of the things I really want to make happen moving forward is bringing more people into that dialogue. Because I actually think that there's a lot of expertise around the Valley that's untapped. And it's not until we start asking questions that we find out what people know and what they can do to make the community a better place. And so that for me is sort of the big crux about the changes I want to make.
Okay. Well, thank you for coming, Chris.
No worries. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching Meet the Candidate. Spokane Talks Online thanks our community-minded partners at Ponderosa Republican Women's Club, North by Northwest Digital, We Believe, We Vote, and the McGarry Law Office, the landlord's attorney, for helping make Meet the Candidate possible.